Good evening and welcome to part 12 of the Ashtavakra Gita teachings. It's a longer teaching tonight, so I'm going to be whittering on less, you'll be pleased to know. It's called Knowledge of the Self. Okay, so it goes through a number of paragraphs where we can start to understand our self with a capital S a little bit more from it is at the end of the day when you're listening to words, when you're reading books, it's knowledge that's being kind of imprinted in your mind, but the way it makes you feel, the way it makes you contemplate, when you meditate on it, that's what feeds the soul, and that's what imprints into the soul, and that's what you take forward. That's what you never lose. So it's a bit like when you read a book. You're never going to remember every single word in the book, but you are going to remember how the book has made you feel, okay? And how you feel is obviously a reflection of how you are interpreting your so-called reality. So it's important to feel into these teachings, buy the book yourself, read, reread, because there's majesty and poetry in all of them, really. Even if it's just waking up in the morning before you start your day, taking a deep breath, looking at settling down before you get out of bed, before you start all the doing that has to be done, and maybe grabbing a book or grabbing a sacred text and just reading a little bit from it, just to help you remember that there's a bigger game in play. Yeah, it's not just the ant farm that we're existing in at the moment, because it does feel a little bit like an ant farm at the moment. And talking about ant farms, I seem to have created one, probably not by mistake, but not by design, by starting a compost heap in my garden. And I now have lots of ants in my kitchen. Not a huge amount, so I try and kind of usher them out without killing them, because they're not really bothering me that much. But I was looking inside the compost heap today, and it's an absolutely unholy mess of ants and creepy crawlies and all sorts. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of maybe what hell would be like, if and when I ever end up there. Because, like any natural process, there is a degradation and decomposition of the creation, okay? Things are birthed, they grow, they die, they decompose, and from the ashes rises another phoenix, right? But the decomposition process can be pretty grim and smelly and grotty and full of heat, fire and brimstone, and gases and all sorts of crazy stuff as these things as the creepy crawlies start to do their work to break everything down. And as our souls kind of journey through experience after experiences, at some point there's either an accumulation of layers of calcification, I call it, calcification of ego, okay, calcification of attachments, beliefs, desires, safety nets, patterns of thinking, wounds that need healing, all this kind of stuff that layers our essence, much like an onion. And there comes a point in time where the soul chooses to begin to liberate itself. And these calcifications, let's call them egos, because we're not just one ego, right? A lot of people talk about an ego. Oh, I've got an ego. You've got an ego. Everyone's got an ego. Or he's got a stubborn ego. He's got this sort of ego, whatever. The ego is a very complex thing. It's made up of a multiplicity. See, when I do that, my phone goes clear again. Made up of a multiplicity of different archetypes, different egos, different shadow aspects. And each ego has a different amount of power, let's call it, within you, within the soul, okay? And these egos at some point need to be comprehended, okay? You can only annihilate and decompose and allow an aspect of yourself to die once you've comprehended it. Because through comprehension, through integration, through understanding, through gnosis, through whatever you want to call it, it can't creep up on you anymore. It can't subconsciously work its way through your decision-making process, through your mind, through your actions, through your choices. So, shadow work is very important on the journey, the soul journey, the spiritual path, because shadow work helps you understand and comprehend not only your ego as a whole, but your ego in its multiplicity, okay? And it's hard work because sometimes our egos are so calcified that they can and so manipulative that they can actually make us think that we're making progress when all we're doing is we're building another ego, okay? So, I'll give you an example. Where for an example, someone starts to wake up a little bit, they go into, what I would class as more conscious spiritual work, where they're starting to do work on themselves. They might go into a healing art. They might be initiated in a new religion. I don't know. It's something something that's kind of away from the mundane materialism that we all kind of have to plow our way through on a daily basis. And, an identity begins to be built around that, which is okay, as long, because you can't help that sometimes, But when that identity becomes so strong, when the attachment to that identity becomes so strong, and the individual loses themselves within that identity, even though it's spiritual, is no more liberated than someone identified with being a stockbroker, or someone identified with being a banker, or a doctor or a nurse or whatever, So we've got to be so careful sometimes, because through our practices, whatever we practice, whatever tradition we like to kind of engage in, we have to understand that, again, it could be, or it can be, another trap. It could be another trap to our progress. And to progress is to travel light, is to not carry the baggage of the attachment to these various kind of identities and egos. And there comes a time where, the soul has to make choices as to whether it needs to start to work its way through some of this stuff. Most of it comes through healing. A lot of it comes through conscious comprehension and meditation of where the little self is still in play, still in mastery of the soul versus the other way around. Even though these egos are actually an aspect of the soul, without comprehending them, they can play in your subconscious in a way which can create realities for you, or can create situations for you, which you may or may not actually have planned. Not that we plan our lives, although we try to. We try to plan our lives, but life tends to plan us more than anything else, and then it's how we respond to life, which is more important, really. And how we respond to life will be determined by how much of these identities, these egos, are working within us, and how or rather, the word comprehending, I can't use it that way, how aware we are of how they're playing out. Okay, and it's such a tough process, because if you're really serious about this work, and there is a seriousness to this work, right? You got to do it every day. It's not a question of going, well, I'll do my meditation once every 3 weeks and have a little think about my thought processes and what. Nah, this is a moment by moment process of stalking everything that's going on within you, and it can be quite tough sometimes, especially when you're grounded as well in living a life, and that's why it's very important to use your outer life, your outer experiences, as your yoga, as a way of coming back into union with that bigger self. So karma yoga, which I think I've spoken to you about a little bit before in one of these other videos, is using your daily life to ultimately awaken, okay, and come back into union with that self with the capital S. And unfortunately, it's the difficult situations in our lives which are our best teachers. So when we are going through our karmic processes, and karma, by the way, isn't necessarily what's happening to you externally, although it does have an influence. Your karma is how you respond or react to what's happening to you. So if you're responding with attachment to outcome, or an aversion, or you're avoiding something, or you're manipulating situations, or your egos are very much in play, then they're just creating more karma for you. They're creating more opportunity to wake up. Karma, I guess, a lot of people call it a debt. The debt to pay is ultimately an energy balance. Okay, so this cosmos needs to be in perfect balance energetically. So where you may have created an imbalance energetically, that has to be recompensed at some level somewhere else. And where you have unconsciously created situations that have had repercussions, be they positive or negative, that energy needs to be recompensed within the soul. Okay, so neutralizing your karma is the only way to really liberate yourself completely, because everyone doing the whole love and light thing, being all good and all that kind of stuff, doesn't necessarily mean that you neutralize your karma. You're actually accruing good karma, which at some level needs to be paid back. So you're still stuck in the game, right? So it's about the reconciliation of those opposites, but you can't reconcile the opposites unless you understand your shadow, unless you understand the multiplicity of the egos working within you, and what they represent, and why, and why they do what they do. Yeah, we've all got them, right? No one's exempt, and some are more prominent than others. Pride, anger, jealousy, lust, they're the biggies. Then you got things like apathy and guilt and shame. These elements, these kind of states of consciousness build, or rather underlie, some of this multiplicity of egos that we have kind of within us. So we've got to be on it. We've got to be really on it all the time. Understand exactly why we're making the certain choices we're having, when we're having conversations, what we're saying, why we're saying it, what are we attached to, why are we trying to control potentially, or Why are we taking sides, or why are we afraid, or what? All these kinds of things that are happening to us on a daily basis isn't about fixing out there, all right? It's about understanding yourself more effectively. It's about comprehending yourself so fully that you're in total mastery of your life, okay? And that's work. It's hard, bloody work. All right? But it's very rewarding, because the more you comprehend yourself, the more you realize how much you've given, or your soul has given its power away, okay, over eons and eons of existence. So, from an extreme perspective, an overcalcification of consciousness within egos, let's call them, multiplicities of egos, samskaras, can create a stymied self, big self. It's almost like there's nothing the soul can do to express itself fully, because the ego has completely taken over. And more often than not, the more the animalistic tendencies within us overtake our psyche, the more the vibratory quality of our soul starts to devolve, okay, and degrade. It's a bit like, with the chain of evolution also has a devolutionary aspect to it as well. And that's why it's so important to be aware of to some extent where you're at, all right? And the devolution of the soul, there's two schools of thought, right? There's certain schools of thought that say that the soul evolves from, the atomic kingdom all the way up through the mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, thinking animal kingdom, i.e. the human body, and then through work liberates itself from the cycle of nature, okay? And there's a school of thought to say that actually we started off completely pure and at union with Source, or the God, whatever you want to call it, and we've devolved into this existence, okay? Doesn't really matter what you think. I mean, I'm kind of the school of thought that, whichever way you look at it, it's a bit like a figure of eight. If you're going up the ladder, you can always, it's like snakes and ladders, right? It's like the game Snakes and Ladders. You can get right to that last fucking square, right? And you're about to make it. And then there's that big snake, right? That takes you all the way back down to the beginning. And, it's a bit like a biblical Job initiation where, you've had it, you've made it, materialistic, you've made it all, you had it all. You have the perfect life. You've got the cattle, the cars, the house, the children, the wife, everything. It's all there, the perfect life, and then poof, for whatever reason, it gets taken away. And you're left squirming in a slithering, sweaty heap on the floor, wondering what the fuck happened, right? And then to top it all off, a bloody virus comes along as well and makes you sprout boils and start to cough and splutter and almost die. And you think, oh my God, poor me, And if we look at that as an initiation for the soul, you'll get through a situation like that, because it's actually really cathartic. As extreme as it sounds, it's like, it's like God testing you, right? It's like Spirit saying, right, let's see how committed you really are. Yeah, Are you gonna be clinging and grasping and crying and trying to make it all back on your own, right? Or are you just gonna surrender and go, actually, I'm in trust. I'm in trust that there's a greater plan in play here. Thy will be done, right? Thy will be done, not my will, not my ego's will, but the will of Spirit, the will of God. Thy will be done. And sometimes you've got to completely surrender to allow life to show you the way, right? Show you the way it wants to live you rather than you living it. Yeah. So it's very important to understand where you might be grasping a bit too much, where you might be clinging on a little bit too much, where you're holding on to these sandbags that if you actually let go would allow your balloon to kind of float a little bit higher. Yeah. Get a better view the higher you go. Although, talking about balloons, I guess Richard Branson's not a very happy man at the moment because he's just had a bit of a Job initiation. Yeah, none of us are immune, okay? Virgin Atlantic gone a bit belly up now because of this, everything that's going on a planetary scale. Bit of a marker, really, isn't it? Shows that no matter how wealthy or elite or whatever you classify or identify yourself as, no one escapes. No one escapes suffering at times, okay, or loss or anything, or death. Yeah, we all end up the same way. Born the same way, end up the same way. It's a great leveler, okay. So. And if that doesn't level you, the trials get harder, all right? Because if your consciousness is getting trapped and going downhill, and accelerating downhill, then, you might end up like an ant. You might end up with the consciousness of an ant. And that would be a great shame, wouldn't it? Because if you've kind of gone from human to ant, that takes some doing, yeah. It takes some. It almost takes some complete and utter abdication of total responsibility and conscious practice to end up devolving from this very precious, let's call it human existence. Hu means spirit. Man means to think, okay, or thinking. So at some level, we're not really human beings yet. We're not human beings yet because unless we've fully integrated our self with a capital S, unless we are fully in communion with that, then we're not really human. We're not angelic. We're not really human. We're all just demons, yeah? We are. We're all demons. Different grades of demons. Trying to either remain demons or become better demons, or to maybe let go of that demoniacal nature and become a bit more angelic, if you want to use those words. So whether you're a demon or an angel, it doesn't matter. You are loved to different extents. Well, no, you are loved. You're all part of the same creation, right? It's just you playing different roles, So yeah, just be aware that the more work you can do to identify and comprehend your egos, but through comprehension, through awareness, when you shine a light on something, yeah, if that thing doesn't want to be seen, it'll squirm and try and hide, right? But once you really shine a light on something, it can't hide anymore. So shine a light into yourself and see yourself, and don't be afraid of what you see. You're going to see some grot, you really are. I've had to sift through literally tons of shit that I've been conning myself over my whole fucking life, right? And probably many, many lives previous to this. It's just digging through a compost heap of fucking crap. Right? Shining more. Oh, really thought I'd worked on that one. Oh, there it comes again, rearing its ugly head. Keep digging. Keep shining that light. Keep understanding yourself more and comprehending yourself more. And then there's nowhere to hide. There's nothing to hide anymore. Yeah? You are what you are. Yeah, it's like Popeye. I am who I am. Yeah? And like Popeye, eat your spinach because it's good for you. Helps the immune system. Thought I'd just put that one in there. My daughter's been making smoothies for me today and she's been shoving loads of spinach in it and tastes alright. But, you know, I'll drink it because it's good for me. Drink your medicine. Doesn't always taste good. Yeah? But it's good for you. So, certain individuals, certain healers, certain shamans that might taste a bit bitter, might be a little bit pointed, might tell you things you're not quite comfortable with, or reveal some truths that might hurt you a little bit. They tend to be the most potent medicines. The stuff that makes you wriggle and squirm when the light is shined on you can also give you that biggest leap forward up the snakes and ladders board. Up the board of comprehension, okay, of yourself. So, enough about that. The teaching. Knowledge of the self. Ashtavakra said, "A man of open intuition may realize self upon hearing a casual instruction, while a man of cluttered intellect inquires bewildered for a lifetime. Indifference to the world's offerings is liberation. Attraction to the world's offerings is the suffering of bondage. This is the way it is. Now do as you please. Knowledge of truth turns an eloquent, wise, and active man mute, empty, and inert. Lovers of the world therefore shun it. You are not the body. You do not have a body. You neither do nor enjoy. You are awareness alone, the one witness. You are free. Go in happiness. Attachment and aversion are attributes of the mind. You are not the mind. You are immaculate awareness, changeless, undivided, free. Go in happiness. Realize self is all and all is self. Be free of personal identity and the sense of mine. Be happy. You are that in which the universe appears. Like waves appearing in the ocean, you are awareness itself. No need to worry. Have faith, my son, have faith. You are awareness alone, the self, the one. You are the Lord of nature. The body is made of worldly stuff. It comes, it lingers, it goes. The self neither comes nor goes, but is forever here. Why mourn the body? If the body lasts until the end of time, or perishes today, is there gain or loss for you? You who are pure awareness? Let the waves of the universe rise and fall as they will. You have nothing to gain or lose. You are the ocean. You are the substance of creation. The universe is you. Who is it that thinks he can accept or reject it? And where does he stand? In you, who is one, immaculate, pure awareness, how does birth, action, or a separate person arise? Whatever you perceive as you and you alone, how can bracelets, armlets, and anklets be other than the gold that they are made of. Leave behind such distinctions as I am he and I am not this. Consider everything self. Be desireless and be happy. Ignorance creates the universe. In reality, one alone exists. There is no person or God other than you. One who knows for certain that the universe is illusion, a seeming, becomes desireless, pure awareness, and finds peace in the realm of no thing. In the ocean of existence, only one is, was, and ever will be. You are neither bound nor free. Live content and be happy. Do not stir the mind with a yes or a no. You are pure awareness. Be still and abide in the bliss of self. Give up completely all contemplation. Hold nothing in the mind or heart. You are the self, forever free. Of what use is thinking to you? Wow, very easy to say, yeah, you are the one, you are awareness, you are the witness, you're all of this, you are all of this. But to feel it, to comprehend it, to understand it, to be it is another thing. And most of us minions need to do some work. We need to contemplate and comprehend and do our meditation, because these are just steps on the path to developing greater states of consciousness and awareness, which, no matter what comes at us in life, can help us navigate it a bit more effectively and with less suffering. Because I think that's the important thing in all of this, is to try and minimize suffering as much as possible. Suffering, unfortunately, is only necessary until you realize it's not necessary. Yeah, when you realize it's not necessary, that means you're kind of woken up a bit, and you then live your life differently. So, yeah, a lot to take in on this video. So enjoy, and I will see you in part 13 very soon. Bye bye.